Hello and welcome to another divorce discussions topic. And today we're going to talk all about how to celebrate women. And Diane Curley is a registered nurse that does missions all over the world. And she also has her own company called Celebrating Women LLC. So Diane, welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here with you and your audience. I started Celebrating Women as a company about 5 years ago now, 6 years ago, in an effort to really amplify women's voices and visibility, celebrate their impact and influence, and demonstrate that every woman is a role model. So I wrote a blog for 5 years, and now I have a TV show on public access TV. Well, I don't write the blog anymore. I have women come to the studio and we have a half-hour talk show about it.
Wow. So tell me, because I think this is something that, we don't do enough. Women tend to be very dedicated to getting work done, getting family done, getting life done, but we don't stop and celebrate and acknowledge the achievements. Like what do you think goes on with that? Like, why are we like that?
I think typically we've been, maybe in past generations taught to not have a voice, or our voice has been silenced. Look how long it took us to get many of the rights that we have, that our sisters historically had to fight for those rights.
Right.
And they're not that old. Some of the rights are only 20 or 50 years old that we have.
We were just, as a matter of fact, I was just talking about this. Sorry to jump in and interrupt you there, but
no, please.
I was talking about this with another woman. It wasn't, there were some places in the 60s and 70s where a woman couldn't like buy a house without her husband's signature, open a bank account, certainly couldn't have a credit card. So, we think the world is really like evolved. That I was alive when.
It wasn't that long ago, right? It wasn't that long ago. So I think it's important to highlight women and demonstrate that every woman is a role model, because I use Beyonce as an example. She's a fabulous woman, a beautiful woman, a great businesswoman even, right? And very talented. But how many of our children can aspire to be Beyonce? They might look up to her, but are they ever really going to have that empire that she has? So I want to have women on the show that are living lives, doing things that nobody hears about because they're not Beyonce. Right. And then have that available to the younger generations. Like when I have women on my show, we speak about what they do and who they are and their influence, their impact. And then they always give advice. What I tell them, what do you want to share to encourage and inspire another woman or young girl? And boom, that opens it up. And I think it's really important to demonstrate to each other as women, and then even to the next generations, that we're all role models and we all have something to offer this world.
Yeah. And it is so interesting that there is this movement. There's this woman, phenomenal woman I met. Her name is Dr. Andrea Slominski. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she has done her PhD in what she calls the age of regency. And this is really that we are the first, I'm going to use you and me together, we are really the first cohort of women that is living and working and thriving into our 60s and 70s, our 50s, 60s and 70s. Even two generations, or even like my mother, moms would work then maybe part-time, but they typically always stayed home or mostly stayed home to look after the kids, or maybe had a part-time job. And her mother didn't work at all and never worked outside of the house. And that wasn't unusual. So that's that's a big change.
Yes.
Yeah. And I still hear, people who say, oh, don't worry about a career. You just need to grow up and marry the right man and do. It's great. There's nothing wrong if that's what you want to do, but there's so much world out there.
I agree. And you are right. and even in my family, my mother didn't work. She went to work when I was 16 years old to pay for my older brother's, help pay for his college education at community college. Okay. Things were different, you know?
Yeah.
And and her mother, not only did her mother not work, her mother didn't drive.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, you know? So I am the first, and I have three brothers. So I am literally the first woman in my immediate family to have a college degree, to work full time, to give back by volunteering, to have these creative pursuits on the side. I've raised children. I have friends. It's a very fulfilling life.
yeah.
And we are thriving. I imagine, because I've been through it myself, going through a divorce, you don't feel like you're thriving. And that's where we need to link arms with, other women. And whether we've initiated the divorce or not is not the issue. It's a painful experience. And because I initiated my divorce over 30 years ago.
Me too. About 30 years ago too.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah.
So with everybody telling us to work it out, right?
Yeah.
But divorce was working it out.
Right.
That was, yeah.
Right.
And, but, I know it's a transition and it takes time and it's painful, but even more so that we need each other and we need to be there and we need to support and we need to empower each other.
Yeah.
So I hope my show has a little bit of an impact, for women, even, women struggling with divorce. They are role models. Oh my God. They have a lot to teach, a lot to offer.
So when you get women that come on your show, what are some of the, because I imagine you've interviewed some amazing people. What are some of the interviews that kind of really stand out for you? Is there one or two, and without getting into all the details, but just a couple that maybe really, really struck home for you? Or
Yeah, I'll tell you one. It was the first time I ever did it. I interviewed a young girl. She was 11. Usually, typically, all my 18 and over, okay, is what I consider a woman. But I took a chance because she was just doing such fabulous things. And I thought to myself, this show could really impact her generation. For other, literally, children her age to see what she's doing. And be like, I could do that. Juliana can do that. I can do that. Maybe Mom, could we do that together?
yeah.
And what she was doing was making art, selling it, and then donating the money to Ronald McDonald's House, which is an organization that, right, has families come while their children are getting services, for their illnesses.
Right.
So she wasn't selling her art. I said to her, you could sell your art and put that money away for college. That would be perfectly acceptable. You could sell your art and buy new clothes if that's what you want to. It's perfectly acceptable. It's your business, right?
Right.
But at 11 years old, she got incorporated. Of course, she had help to do this, but the desire to do that comes from within her.
Yeah.
And talking to her, even though she was 11, was like talking to a full-grown, boy, she's wise beyond her years, and the giving and the heart that she has. And I hope she never loses that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so positive. And your passion just came through in that too. So do you ever find that women have a hard time seeing that what they're doing is really unique and special?
Yes, absolutely. All the time. I mean, I think sometimes I do that to myself, It's another reason why I like having the blog there still, even though I've interviewed about 70 women on the blog, but they all get asked the same 4 questions, and they live on my website in perpetuity. So if you want to say, oh, well, they can do that, but not me, or, I wouldn't be able to, possibly, I'm not a role model, but if you read some of those interviews and you see women just like you, and that will give you maybe some strength or some inspiration to say, what I do is important. Who I am, actually, who I am is important. I have to be careful in my own thinking and when I speak to other women and getting caught up that our identity is in what we do, you know, or our identity is in being a wife or a mother, because those things
Yes.
are transient. Being a
Yeah.
wife can be transient. If your whole identity is wrapped up in the marriage
Right.
and the marriage does not thrive, your identity and your soul is crushed.
Do you want to know something? You just triggered something in me that I haven't thought of for a long time. I was a teacher for years and years, and I was at a professional development conference, and this was probably in, I don't know, mid 90s. And the speaker was in this room, and mostly teachers, so or teachers, mostly women, and big room, maybe 300 or 400 people in the room. And the keynote speaker said, I want you to take a minute and imagine you're on a deserted island and you meet somebody on that deserted island and you have to tell them who you are. And you can define yourself by your career, your past or current employment, your degrees, or your relationship in the world with other people. How would you describe yourself? And like 400 people just sat there and went, holy shit, I don't have a clue what I'm going to say. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. And I give a talk about redefining success for yourself. And that's one of the things we touch on is, what is success? What makes us successful? Is it the letters after our names? Because I got several. These days I don't feel successful. Is it money, power, fame, some combination? Well, it's not. And redefining success for yourself and having it align with your values and what's important to you.
Yeah.
And again, not defining yourself by, I'm a nurse. Well, what happens when I can no longer work as a nurse? Does my whole identity go away? Is my soul crushed? Am I no longer feeling worthy? So similarly to in a marriage or as a mother, or any of those things. So be really careful what you wrap your worth around and your identity around. And
and that is such a powerful thing, because I think the whole idea, and I'm going to refer to divorce because that's kind of my area, but there's a real, I think, dangerous spot where women hit, and I'm hoping that my generation is going to kind of be the last generation this is a problem for, but it's where they realize that their kids are going out to college or they've got married, so they're kind of dealing with the empty nest syndrome, and then their spouse, they're no longer having a good relationship with their spouse, the whole gray divorce thing. They decide to go through a divorce. They either have already retired or they've never really had a career, and they feel that they're too, or a job that they've enjoyed, so they feel like they're no longer eligible or they're too old to so they've kind of got, not, you're right, it's just soul crushing. It's like, I'm not a mom, I'm not a wife, I've never had, or I'm retired from a career. What am I doing on the face of the earth? And there is that that sense of just trying to cling to something that gives you meaning at a point in time. And like I say, like we talked about, I really hope this is kind of the last generation where that's how we define ourselves. But
I think having a purpose is important, and I do love showcasing other women's impact and influence. But interestingly enough, my show isn't about their achievements.
Okay.
My show is about their influence and their impact, and celebrating them and amplifying their voice and their visibility, really showcasing them. But it's about, I think it's more about your impact on this world than it is upon your title or the amount of money that you have, which defines success and self-worth.
Right.
So every woman is a role model. Every woman is worthy. And I know that there are times in our lives where that message isn't as clear. That message isn't coming through because of what we're going through. It's important to seek out help, and when you're going through challenging times,
and to have those inspirational stories. I love that you have compiled this resource for women to access. I think because I do think there's a reason people love Hallmark movies, right? Like when people read your blog, they know they're going to read about women who have had that positive impact on the world,
Mm,
that have had a purpose. And it's a feel good thing to do that, to
yeah.
go and immerse yourself in that kind of positivity. So, um, Diane, this has been fantastic having this
Mhm.
conversation. It's a little bit different than I normally do, but it's so powerful. I mean, just celebrating being a woman
Yeah.
is really important. I
Yeah.
when you were talking, I was thinking too. I received a fairly prestigious award in a job I used to have, and I remember receiving it and thinking, "Well, this is nice." And I put the little thing on the shelf, and it's
Yeah.
sat there, and I carried it with me for the years. But the maybe about 6 years ago, so I'm from Canada, live in the States. I was back in Canada, and just happened to run into an old student of mine's parent who recognized me and came up to me and said, I just want you to know that your kindness, he was on the autism spectrum. And she came up and she said, your kindness on the student's name, who's really struggled. He is married, he has a child, and he's got a great job, and he's just doing phenomenal. And we know he couldn't have done it without,
Mhm.
the program I was in, not just me, but the whole
Yeah.
program. That meant more to me than that whole big award.
Yeah.
You
The
know?
impact. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why I went on to, like, I published a planner journal, Celebrating Women Planner Journal, which includes quotes from the women, and then has the ability to help you stay organized in our chaotic lives, right? So it's a planner and a journal all in one, and then it includes weekly inspirational quotes from the women I interviewed, and again, attributed to them, because those words were their quotes to me to inspire and encourage another woman
Yeah.
or young girl. And so I sell that planner journal under the Celebrating Women name. And I do have, I can text it to you later. I do have a digital edition, which is no cost.
Oh, wow. Well, if you can
That
send,
might help the people.
yeah, yeah. And even please send me or please tell me, can they get it on Amazon or is it through your website?
Yes, yes. No, it's both. It's my website or Amazon.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just a fabulous tool to have,
And it's called Celebrating Women. Is that what?
planner and yeah, yeah.
Celebrating Women Planner and Journal. Yeah.
Hmm.
Diane, send me the link and I'll make sure it gets in the show notes so that people can grab it. And
Okay, great.
I just want to thank you for this really powerful and positive and insightful conversation. And going to encourage you to go out, get that planner and journal. I'm going to go get a copy of it when we get off here. And thank you so much for being here, Diane. Really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you for the work that you do.